today we have an esteemed panel of guests. So my name is Sunny Aziz. I'm a partner in Deloitte's cyber practice, responsible for helping to drive a lot of our emerging technologies and transformations. Joining me today, first of all, when you talk about automation and AI, ServiceNow is obviously the platform that naturally comes up given the capabilities. Gene Golovinsky is the VP of Product Security. Gene is a highly accomplished technology executive. He's responsible for running product security for ServiceNow. Also alongside is a good friend and client, Rich Bache, who is the CISO of AT&T. Rich has previously been the CISO at Wells Fargo. He served the nation in the CIA as the CISO of the CIA. I also had a chance to work with him closely at AIG while he was the CISO at AIG. And jokingly, I talk about Rich and his coaching tree that he has. He has what now, 13 or so higher CISOs that he has personally helped develop. And so Rich has been in the industry for a very, very long time and a very recognized leader. And then also, last but certainly not least, Karen Norton, who is a partner in our Deloitte practice. Karen has been, from the beginning, been responsible for helping to drive a lot of the transformation and the journeys for clients as they embark on AI. And so it comes with a lot of experience on how AI has evolved, and so he'll chime in on that as well. Thank you all for being here. So let me start off with, and what we'll do is we'll run through a few questions, but I also want to open up the forum for some questions towards the end. But let me start off with a relatively easy question, right? How do you see AI evolving within cybersecurity, and what are you most excited about, but what are you most concerned about? And Gene, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So obviously I became this two-letter acronym that everybody says, but not everybody necessarily even knows what it means these days. What happens is, like every new technology and every new opportunity to solve customer problems, developers and the development community rushes to solve customer problem. And more often than not, unfortunately or fortunately for us, because we would be out of jobs otherwise, the security is an afterthought. AI fundamentally is no different. Everybody started looking at chat GPTs and every other possible chat everything. And only then people realized it can mislead you, it can lie to you, it can offend you, and on and on and on and on. And as it evolved with incredible pace and we got to agents and agentic frameworks, now they can take actions on your behalf and on behalf of somebody else. So every possible security scene that we carefully committed over the last 30 years just became exponentially much more exposed and much more exploitable, because the guys on the other side, which is a very motivated set of adversaries, they have AI tools as well. So if whatever they could automate before, they could automate even more and more creatively now and attack the same vulnerabilities, the same imperfections that we over the years committed within our infrastructure and the code. So that's on the bad side. On the good side, we can be faster, smarter, and much more effective ourselves. There's a whole bunch of stories how security practitioners become more creative and more inventive with summarization and with prioritization. And maybe we can talk about it later. But if you look at the AI as a productivity tool for hackers and adversaries, it's the same, but even more so for security practitioners. And if you just walk around RSA without even going to the show floor, but just talk to people around, you will see how many startups and how many creative thoughts is around AI and security, securing AI, helping AI to make security practitioners more and more productive. We're just at the very beginning of adoption of all of this. So it's somewhat hard to predict what is going to happen, other than in my few decades in the field, I have never seen such a pace of innovation and changing landscape, which will force us to rethink how we think about security and attacker frameworks as well. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Rich, what are you most excited about and what are you most concerned about?
Well, I want to piggyback on what Gene said, but turn a little bit into the irony of history, right? So, 1990s, we really get into the infrastructure of the internet, and we produce this thing. Obviously, it drives profitability through the roof. Everyone's excited about it. Security is really not thought about or talked about or baked in. Still to this day, we try to secure that infrastructure. Fast forward to the next era, the era of cloud. Everyone really excited about it, all the value it's going to bring to the business. We don't bake security in. Now, we're dealing with lots of cloud issues and obviously the cost to secure the cloud. So now we're in the area of AI. Everybody's all excited about it. It's producing all these great things. Once again, we haven't baked in security. We haven't came up with a defensive strategy associated with it. So we see things repeating. So from my standpoint, to simply put, what worries me is we're just in the same place we were 20 years ago and then now 10 years ago for cloud as far as actually understanding and mitigating the risks associated with this new AI environment. With that said, what is exciting about it as a cyber professional is the ability to utilize it in a fashion to speed up many of the things that we do as practitioners that can make things better and quicker. One of I think the simplest uses of it is we all have massive amounts of cybersecurity policies, architectural diagrams, all these governance features. And how do you bake that into a culture? How do you enable that into a culture when people are trying to go look for and understand what standards there are, what architectural diagrams there are as they build products or they implement technologies? Well, now with a good simple language model, right, you can just basically type in how do we secure internet-facing applications, and it can tell you all the policies, pull in all the architectural diagrams, and give something immediately right there for them to do it. So I think it will help us as security professionals help enable the business even better by providing them faster, clearer, all-encompassing guidance as it is associated to technology implementations and other things.
Karen?
So now that I'm depressed after Rich's answer, no, I mean, look, this is following a very similar pattern to cloud. I totally agree. It's moving more quickly than cloud. So cloud adoption occurred, kind of over a number of years. AI adoption is occurring within months, right? And the speed of it is sort of amazing from a technology adoption perspective. So I don't think we have the luxury of time, right, to add further depression to the mix. But the good news is that, yeah, the same things that make AI valuable for the business, right, where cyber is critical to enabling the business and realizing the results and the value of AI without necessarily taking undue risk. On the flip side, there's tremendous value for us in using AI in the business of cyber, right? And so as we think about things we used to do them for security compliance perspective, you can do security compliance things like third-party risk management much more quickly, much more efficiently. You can get to the real risks faster. You can mitigate those risks more quickly, et cetera. Same thing with SOC transformation. So digital analysts can do level 1 triage. You can get to, in our own experience, we've cut 30 to 40% of the time off of each ticket that's being generated by an alert in terms of identifying the nature of the issue, remediation steps, and taking action, right? So there's a lot we can do with AI. So I think we have to concentrate on both sides of the coin. One is, yes, we have to focus on securing it to the degree possible and making it easier for the business to adopt secure AI technologies or adopt AI technologies in a way that's easy for them to use. And then we also really have to focus on how do we leverage AI in the business of cyber, because that's directionally where we're headed, right? The only way to fight fire in this case is going to be with fire.
Yeah. So let me build off of that, Karen, just to follow up a little bit, right? I think one of what all of you talked a little bit about was the ability to be able to enable cyber professionals. And I think one of the biggest challenges that CISOs face, and Rich, curious about your opinion on this as well, but one of the biggest challenges is around the race for talent, the race for being able to have professionals, not only the right professionals, but having professionals focusing in on the things that are most important. And so how do you see, and maybe Karen will start with you, how do you see the cyber workforce evolving to keep pace with what's happening from an AI perspective?
So it's funny because it's, I don't know, somewhat a provocative statement, but kids coming out of school right now are probably better equipped than people with 10 years of experience. Because if you've been in the business for 10 years, you've got a certain framework and a way of thinking about problems and how you solve for those problems. And it follows a very structured approach because that's how that's sort of the roots of information security. The kids who are coming out of college now are actually using these tools in their day-to-day lives. It's the language they speak. They understand it. They don't have the same constraints around thinking about things in traditional ways. And so to many cases, you have to look for folks who can bring knowledge and expertise from experience in the cyberspace, but then you have to have people who can also translate that knowledge and expertise into code, into solutions. And it's really the combination of. And so I spend half my time, basically as the person leading development of our solutions that we're taking to market. And then the other half of my time is leading the build and deploy of solutions that we're using internally to transform the way we deliver services to clients, right? And the team that I'm working with internally covers the spectrum, every spectrum in terms of age, experience, backgrounds, et cetera, because that's what you need to tackle AI. I mean, you need to understand the data science at a deep level. You need to understand how to develop and build and, secure solutions. And you need to be able to run a development team that's actually going to bring all that together and result in, a product you can trust.
And Rich, coming back to you here for a second, as AT&T, 140-year-old company, one of the largest global telecom companies in
Rich has
the
been
world.
there for half that time.
But
You look good for that.
You drew first blood.
be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but as you talk about the evolution of the internet, cloud, now AI, from an adoption perspective, an organization like AT&T has to be at the forefront to be able to keep pace. So, in your role as the CISO, how do you evolve alongside the organization, and how do you ensure that the adoption is done securely in the right way?
We believe it being transformational, right, as far as a business enablement. But as a security team, right, you have a lot then you have to do, right, to make sure it's being done in a safe fashion and understand it. So, back to Karen's point, how do you do that? So, from my standpoint, leading CISOs are kind of going back to a page in Jack Welch's playbook, right, where everybody needs to take these AI courses. Because I want you thinking about how you can use AI in your job to eliminate functions, right, or enable functions. And then not only that, here's where you can go to play with it, right? So you got to kind of give them that sandbox, right, so that they're not afraid of it. The younger generation is coming in, ready to go, fired up. I have a child in college, not afraid of it. I got younger kids, they're using it all over the place. It's fascinating to watch them. And then I look at my workforce and it's like, what are we doing about it? And we have to not be afraid of it. And I always look for historical reference to these things. It's kind of like this. Do you need to be an excellent coder in order to use code? And the answer is no. But you have to understand what code can do to help you enable. So when it comes to AI, it's not that we're asking the workforce to be AI experts. We want them to understand the fundamentals of it and bring forth the idea so then we can lean into the appropriate expertise to do it. Yeah. But we need, and we should all think about this probably in our roles, right? What refresher can we go through as it relates to AI, and not to be the AI expert, but but how to potentially apply the concepts of AI, to advance our thinking and do things. And in the cyber world, you got everything from large data correlation to the policy example that I gave you to potential remediation, reducing reductions, for SDLC and other things is where it's applicable. So I do think almost I don't want to call it a strategic pause, time out, but the workforce in general in cyber, we need to provide them a platform to learn in the hopes that they'll think about how to apply the AI in the future.
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit to this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I love those points. And Kieran, you made a great point about the kids are not afraid, they're fearless, and they're already using it, all of that. That's absolutely true. There is another factor to the statement that you made that, 15, 20 years experience in cyber could do a disservice to you. I was looking at some of the red teaming of AI systems recently, and it's not very difficult to break. Jailbreaking becomes a commodity today. Everywhere you go, you have on LinkedIn examples of how to do that and how to hijack your LLM and force it to do nefarious things. And then you ask the question, well, how do you defend against it? And the majority of answers is not really clear. And you're hearing, well, we just need to do OPSEC better and we just need to do this better, which is all true. The thing I realized is trying to teach the traditional security practitioners AI security is almost an effort in futility. It's not like nobody's going to pick it up, but the majority of people just don't think that way. They set in their ways and don't think that way. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that what I hated in my college years, the linear algebra, the matrix calculation, the vector proximity, all of a sudden actually makes sense now. Not that I remember it, I just remember that I was taught it. And I started looking for people with advanced math degrees who are interested in security, and voila, completely different conversation. They actually understand AI, not like users of AI should, but they understand AI, and when you set a problem in front of them, how do you actually defend against the dark magic? Mm-hmm. They will start turning. So I even heard today somebody coined the term AI OPSEC. Forget your traditional OPSEC. It's helpful, but it's not going to solve the problem. AI OPSEC is a completely different discipline. So people who have decent math degrees, oh my God, maybe PhDs, they could be incredibly helpful in securing AI subsystems, which evolve with unbelievable pace, and with traditional security practitioners feeling a little bit inadequate.
So Jamie, an interesting point. So Karen, you run AI, so do you have a PhD?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
No, neither do I. Neither do I.
I have a PhD in something.
But I know I need to hire them.
Yeah.
Or look for them at least.
So Gene, let me ask you. So obviously, ServiceNow is synonymous with AI, right? I think it's probably again one of the leading products. In your role as a VP of product security, how do you balance what's happening from an innovation standpoint against how do you protect it and make sure that the product is secure?
Could you ask a different question? Well, it's a great challenge. It's one of the reasons why I was so happy to join ServiceNow. Only 6 months in the job, so take it easy on me, folks. I'm not 70 years, but somewhat with AT&T. It's a wonderful challenge. Yeah. It really is. The pace of our innovation in the AI as a productivity tool is completely mind-boggling. I've never seen anything like this. And what we're offering to our customers. And I think there's also an opportunity there because there's lots of pressures on CISOs of mid-sized companies, even large companies, to adopt AI simply because it promises so much productivity, and truly is. Yeah. So on one hand, they have those pressures of creating more productivity and more opportunities for their workforce to do better, more, and more effectively. On the other hand, they don't really know how to eat that yet. Yeah. So they hear the guardrails, they hear AI firewalls, they hear all sorts of stories, but none of those answers is truly solving the problem yet. I came across Stanford report the other week. They showed that the data exfiltration through LLMs grew 56% in 2024. Well, I don't know if it's from 2 to 3 or from 200 to 300, but clearly the pace and the trend is there. It's going to be more and more we don't learn how to protect it adequately. So one of the things that we do is we're actually setting up a dedicated AI security team with those PhDs, which are not easy to find, and retooling them to these security practitioners. Another thing, we've dedicated red teaming of our own AI solutions specifically for AI, not just general red teaming, not to downplay it, but AI, again, is a very different set of skills. All of those things will take time. We're moving as fast as we can.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, because we're so dominant in the enterprise, helping to automate the workflows, we have an incredible opportunity to make the neighborhood safer and to help companies adopt AI safer, securely, with much more trust, to deploying that to much broader audience. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Karen, I guess, as you've
As
advised
an honorary PhD.
as an honorary PhD,
he's not going to let it go now.
Dr. Norton, can you talk a little bit about what leading practices have you seen organizations adopt, and what are recommendations or advices that you would give to organizations?
Yeah, so it's still early days, right? So I'll say that.
Yeah.
There's a lot more hype about AI than there's actual production AI solutions, right? So what we see is that a lot of clients are piloting, testing, prototyping, etc., but then they get stuck. And they get stuck before they can move to production for two reasons. We know this from our own research and other research that we've seen. First one is concerns with security. Second one is concerns with data, right? Data privacy. So the good news is these are areas and domains we've known, right, for a long, long time. And so my recommendation is don't create a whole new AI security program, but basically enhance the security program you have to address the nuances associated with AI, right? So if you already have a software development lifecycle and you already have, concepts in place how to secure that, you don't throw that out, but you're going to have to add to it, right? You're going to have to add more from a data validation perspective, more from a data testing standpoint. You're going to have to add, model, specific security techniques and so forth. But enhance what you have. Don't create a new thing. Don't do it separately, because when you create new programs, unfortunately, that comes with a lot of overhead. So I would really tell people to focus on enhancing what they have today, modernizing it for AI, and trying to make it as streamlined and automated as possible, right? Because again, if we're asking people to do things, they have to go manually do it or otherwise do it voluntarily. Like, those are not optimal scenarios, right? So I think that would be the advice and a good place for most companies to start. The clients that are farther down the path, right, they're probably getting into some fairly nuanced use cases around what they're trying to do. I will say that with all the hype around agentic's real in the sense that it's going to be very impactful to every business. There's not a lot of real agentic happening. A lot of it's happening in places like ServiceNow, right? I wouldn't say it's a walled garden, but it's a fenced garden, right?
Yeah.
You can be in there and you're not worried about the deer coming and eating all the plants, right? Because it's a controlled environment to some degree, and you wouldn't be in ServiceNow if you weren't supposed to be in ServiceNow, et cetera. So there's some security around that. And so a lot of companies are starting there. But once you cross boundaries, once you start jumping from, ServiceNow to other systems and you're going for a true agentic, the complexity goes up incredibly, right? Yeah. And so the advice there is to focus on an agent first, build the agent, do it right, understand it, then worry about agentic. Right? If you go straight for agentic, you're biting off complexity in that model you probably are not ready to consume. So in fact, ServiceNow, Google, and Deloitte have announced a new effort where the three of us are sponsoring in agent-to-agent communication standards, right? To help sort of simplify that process. But, again, do the fundamentals well first before you try and swing for, home runs.
Yeah. To Rich, we talked about both sides of the coin, right? So the side of innovating and doing more from an AI perspective. Flip side of that coin, as a CISO, when you think about the changing landscapes, what are some AI-driven threats that either you've seen or that we need to be prepared for?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in two ways. One, a scenario at the end and the beginning. I'm a big fan of organizations being able to answer questions, right? Karen made a comment about a dedicated team, not a dedicated team. Oftentimes that's cultural, depending how the organization works. But irregardless, today, I would suggest most don't, but should be able to answer these questions about AI. Do I have a complete inventory of all AI agents operating in my environment, to include third party? Do I have a process in place today to validate and evaluate the agent before it goes live into my environment? And then do I understand the identity and access management and authorization of those agents to be able to communicate with other agents in my environment? Fourth, how am I monitoring the health of those agents to understand, are they introducing unknown or ununderstandable or new risks into the environment? And then my biggest concern is okay, so what happens when you're done with your agent? Are we back to the cloud world where we have all these tenants that are dormant out there, but the difference now is these dormant agents can be weaponized very easily and take action on the evolution of it. So, I think answer all those questions, and you might say you have a AI security program. How you construct that obviously depends on a lot of different things. But the other interesting thing about AI and how much everyone is embracing it, if I put my other hat on, and let's just say hypothetically, I don't want to take a particular country, but let's say you're a country who doesn't have a large GDP and you have to make money through other fashions to support your country. So you might decide to look and say, hey, look, everybody is starting to use travel agent AI. Why do you need to use a travel agency anymore, right? You're just out there looking for all the best prices of this. You can run AI, gather up that information, book the flights. As a matter of fact, you can automate the payment and everything else. Well, I can also introduce fake information into that ecosystem, and suddenly you're paying for things that actually aren't real, but according to AI is real because AI is using the internet and other things to get their information. So, we also need to think about that as a business application as we go to embrace this and think about it from a bad actor standpoint is how could they potentially take what would be a common sense process that shows enablement and empowerment, but understanding how AI works, you can introduce things that can cause it to obviously capture false information and come to false conclusions.
Yeah, manipulate, right, et cetera, right? I mean, it's possible to distort the world in a way that has not been really accessible previously.
A non-existent truth becomes the truth now.
Yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
I read it on the internet.
Yeah,
It must be true.
I mean, Dr. Norton said so.
Yeah, that's right.
Says, oh
yeah, that's right.
So what does that do to the value of data and the need to be able to understand the integrity of data?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big issue. It already is, but really a prominent issue in the future, just with the idea of being able to introduce fake information. Obviously, we see it already being used, fake videos, the ability to interpret things. And I don't know, but at some point we're going to have to be able to have some type of filtering system. And again, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it'll be like, software, we have a certificate of authenticity that the information that's out there, and then only those things that have those authenticity can be utilized by the AI to help prevent it. I don't know where we're going, but right now, the ability to put out false information that can be utilized by agents that use the internet, right, is a very, very real thing to do today. But Sonny, it's also just not. It's just not that, right? So, so think about a corporation today, right? And think about they post things on websites, right? What if you're able to gain access to that website and then just change the information, right? Change your 10K, change all these things, and all of a sudden that can draw an incredible frenzy, right? The news picks it up. For example, can you imagine on the front page of Deloitte.com, we get a picture of Dr. Norton, right? And then somebody basically comes up and says, this is false information. He's actually never received a PhD, right? I mean, it could be
Like he barely got out of college.
It could be damaging.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
So I've heard a couple of weeks ago that statement that kind of intrigued me. Data is a new executable. Fundamentally, you don't really have to do remote code execution anymore. You embedded commands into your prompts. It sits somewhere. You don't even have to open an email. Just the fact that your Copilot summarized the email for you, kind of click through it. An email has been read, although you never touched it. So the opportunities are paramount.
I mean, there's no doubt it's going to become increasingly more difficult to authenticate things, not in the sense of identity, but like, is this really from the company that it appears to be from? Is it the person you think you're talking to? Is it a real person, or is it simply AI that you're interacting with and you don't know the difference, right? I think from a business perspective, some of these things can be addressed in terms of how you're trying to tackle AI. So there's techniques for some of the issues, but in general, it's going to be a challenging time as humans are not going to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
So on that, Karen, are there practices around monitoring for drift or bias?
Yeah, I think some of that's where the fighting fire with fire comes in, right? So humans are not going to be able to tell the difference, and so what we're going to have to do is figure out how to tell the difference from a telemetry perspective, right? And you're going to be using much larger data sets. You're going to be doing complex kind of analysis of those data sets, and that's going to require really the solution for that will probably be AI related. But I think directionally that's where it's going to have to go.
Okay. Last question for you guys, and then I want to open it up for the group. But are there, as you look at the next generation coming up, Rich, you had a wonderful session with your daughter, with light years ahead of where you were at that age, right? Are these
Definitely light years ahead of Rich was that age.
Yeah. What advice would you have for folks coming in and sort of understanding how cybersecurity is going to evolve, what they need to look at, and someone that's newer in the industry?
I think the most important thing is the application of basic practices, irregardless of the current or emerging technologies, don't change. At the end of the day, cybersecurity really is risk management, and the best programs have the greatest transparency, the speed, the controls. So, oftentimes we like to chase the shiny objects, where at the end of the day, the practices remain the same. Just like I said, do you understand your inventory? How is this accessed? Does it have the appropriate protocols in place? And as we go from AI, and then, maybe after this session, Dr. Norton can tell you about quantum physics of his PhD dissertation on how it's going to apply to the application of AI in the future. Totally. Understanding, those fundamentals and having that eagerness to be a lifetime learner, I think is really important. You don't always have to be the expert in each of the disciplines, but understanding it and having the will and the desire to try to apply it and advance and challenge existing practices is very, very key. We can't, and I'm going to say as cyber defenders, rest on practices of the past. We have to constantly move forward and be agile and be open for new techniques, because the adversaries are definitely not.
Yeah. I'd love to add to that, because and so for those who don't know and haven't picked up on it, Rich and I used to work together, so we've known each other for a long time. Was that 20 years ago?
Too long.
It was a long time. Yeah, too long. I agree. But we were talking about some of these things, 15 plus years ago at cyber hygiene.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the game has not changed. Like, if you're not patching systems, and you're worrying about AI security, I'd suggest you go figure out how to patch your systems. Right. Now, this is where the opportunity comes in, because we have people who know how to patch systems. They've been doing it for a long time. They understand the problem set. They understand what the challenges are. They don't necessarily know how to solve for them for AI. That's fine. they can be the ones who help figure out how that problem gets solved for, along with people who actually can create solutions leveraging AI, but they really need to understand the problem set at a deep level. So that's kind of where I think the future needs to be. It's that integration of knowledge that we have with new techniques to allow us to solve problems that have been a challenge for a long, long time. So if you take patching, the whole attack surface management and patching lifecycle, right? We're actually, been building a solution to address that entire process with as much automation as possible, because we know it's a problem all of our clients have, right? It's fundamental, it's core to security. And so while it doesn't sound like the newest and most different thing from an AI perspective, it's a really valuable problem to solve for. And by the way, just as a shout out for the people who are suffering with me, who are building the solutions, a bunch of them are in the back and they're doing demos if you want to see the things I'm talking about, because they're real. They're, we can show, not just talk about kind of thing. So please do stop by if you're interested in seeing any of that. But I think that's really important. And I think that's what pulls people in, pulls them together into a team of like, hey, you have the knowledge we need to figure out how to solve this problem. We have the tool set, we can help solve it. And that's where everybody gets to work together to be part of the solution going forward.
Sonny, before we go to Q&A, can I just make one disclaimer? So Karen, Dr. Norton, I think after this, I'm going to have to check the accreditation of Deloitte University to see if they actually are allowed to give PhDs. I'm very afraid about that.
I'm pretty sure they do. I'm pretty sure. I've got 7 now. So
Yeah.
Maybe just to add to this point, security is a continuum, right? Something which considered secure practices 20, 30 years ago is no longer it. Just take encryption. DES, triple DES, right? Everybody knows that at this point is vulnerable. So we can never get systems completely secure. It's a risk management situation. The best way to secure systems completely is just disconnect, and then the business goes down, but it's perfectly secure. I don't think anybody wants that. So we shouldn't get paralyzed by the evolution of the technology. We should actually embrace it and use it to our advantage. There are examples already today how security practitioners use AI to their advantage to defend better, faster, patch the system, prioritize their vulnerabilities better. All of that is there. So this is risk and opportunity, like any evolution of technology with cloud, with internet, and now AI. And I don't know what's going to be in 5 years, but it's very exciting times for us.
Oh, we're excited to have it for sure.
Yeah.
We are bound by the ethical use of AI. Our adversaries are not
They're
bound by
not.
that.
Yeah.
So
They are not.
I want to thank, can we get a round of applause for Gene, Rich, and Dr. Norton?
Thank you.
James, appreciate it.